She knocked on the wrong door at 3 a.m. What the millionaire did next will shock you forever. The clock struck 3, piercing the stillness of the night with a bone-chilling ring. The moon cast an eerie glow, illuminating the grand but lonely mansion. Yuan Carr, a reclusive millionaire known for his eccentricities, sat alone, surrounded by towering stacks of wealth, old paintings, rare coins, priceless artifacts. He was a man of secrets, but tonight, behind his polished facade, fear crept in. Suddenly, a knock shattered the silence. His heart raced. Who would come knocking at this hour? Yuan's breathing quickened, thrumming in his ears like a frantic drum. The knock came again, louder, more insistent. His palms clammy, he grabbed a small, polished knife from the table. He crept towards the door, glancing through the peephole, and froze. A woman stood there, drenched in rain, her eyes wild with desperation. In her hand, a small, blooded cloth soaked through. A flicker of hope mixed paralyzing fear surged through him. "Open up!" she pleaded, her voice trembling, echoing back from the darkened hall. The frantic tone sent shockwaves through him. Who was she? What had happened? Yuan's mind spun as he weighed his options: confront a stranger bearing wounds or lock the door and pretend he wasn't home. He was a man who thrived on control, yet that control felt precarious as the woman shifted her weight from foot to foot, her breath visible in the chilled air. Suddenly, realization hit him like a jolt. He recognized her from the fleeting glances seen at charity events and social circles. This wasn't just any woman, this was Alyssa Hartman, the woman rumored to have been involved in more than just philanthropy. But there was something darker out there, lurking in the shadows behind her. "Please, I need your help," she screamed, her voice cracked, desperation bleeding through every syllable. Panic fluttered in his chest, the shadows behind her felt alive, creeping closer, tightening around them both. Yuan could hear muffled footfalls in the distance. Were they coming for her? For him? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Yuan's adrenaline surged, overpowering his rational thoughts. He couldn't just leave her there. But if he opened that door, what storm would come rushing in? In that moment, the world outside faded away, and all that remained was the heart-stopping decision before him. Would he gamble his safety on the stranger in front of him who seemed to hold an entire storm of danger in her grip? As the knocking grew louder, drawing closer to terrifying, he took a deep breath, hand shaking as he ran it through his hair. The stakes were higher than he could grasp, yet instinctively, his heart began a slow, treacherous beat toward the door. The question hung heavy: would he step into disaster or save a life? Yuan's heart pounded against his ribcage, each beat screaming for action. He wrestled with the turmoil inside him. What if opening the door led to chaos? But what if not opening it meant letting a woman bleed out on his doorstep? With a deep, shuddering breath, he turned the handle, his pulse racing, sweat beading on his forehead as the door creaked open. Alyssa stumbled inside, nearly collapsing on the polished hardwood floor. The scent of rain and something metallic filled the air. Yuan glanced over his shoulder, terror gripping him as he scanned the shadows behind her. Had someone followed her? "Where are they?" he whispered, trying to keep his voice steady. He crouched beside her. Her face was pale, eyes brimming with fear, yet all he could see were those stark red stains on her shirt. What happened? "Not here," she gasped, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "They'll find me. You have to help me." "Who?" Yuan barely heard himself speak, the weight of her urgency pressing against him like a physical force. The room felt like it was closing in around them. She tried to get up, but a shiver overtook her body, and she fell back against the wall. Yuan's instincts kicked in. He needed to act. "Sit down. Just breathe." As he moved to grab a towel from the bathroom, a loud crash echoed from outside. Ewan's chest tightened as the sound rang through the quiet house like a warning bell. Whoever had been after her was getting closer. "Stay quiet," he hissed, his heart racing as he returned, pressing the towel against the blooded cloth in her hand. "I tried to escape," Alyssa stammered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "They're coming for me. They want what I know." Panic was rising in her voice, her eyes wide and desperate. "Who? What do you know?" Ewan's mind spiraled, urgency surging through him. He needed information. He couldn't let fear paralyze him. But it was like pulling teeth. She was caught in a web of terror, and he was both her savior and an unknown variable in her fate. "Please, Alyssa," Ewan pleaded, feeling the weight of her silence pressing deeper into his gut. Just then, a shadow moved past the window. He froze, adrenaline surging again, instinct screaming at him to hide her. "Get behind the couch," he ordered quietly, shoving her toward the living room as he turned off the lights. He tiptoed to the window, peeking through the curtains. A dark figure stood under the streetlight, scanning the area. Ewan's breath caught in his throat. "What are we going to do?" Alyssa whispered, her voice trembling as she huddled against the couch. Ewan's mind raced. There was so much he didn't understand and so much that could go wrong. He glanced around the room, weighing his options. If he called the police, would they trust him? Or would they see a man harboring a wounded woman with blood on his hands? What if they brought danger instead of safety? The figure outside took a step closer, and Ewan's chest tightened. "They want me dead. They'll kill you too if they find you." Alyssa's voice was barely a whisper but shot through him like an arrow. The walls began to close in, and Ewan felt the cold fingers of panic grasping at his throat. The choice he made next would determine everything. What was he willing to risk? Just then, a loud knock rattled the door. Ewan spun around, heart racing. "Ewan Carr," came a gravelly voice from the other side. "Open up. We know she's in there." Ewan's pulse thundered in his ears. The choices laid before him felt impossibly burdened with consequence. He needed to choose swiftly. He caught Alyssa's frightened gaze, their eyes locking in a silent promise of survival. He couldn't just hand her over. Breathing heavily, he stepped toward the door, hand hovering over the knob. What would happen if he opened it? The final decision hung in the balance. Would he face the monster on the other side or fight to protect the woman who had just exploded into his carefully crafted world of solitude? Everything hinged on that moment. Would he unleash the storm or try to brave the darkness together? Ewan's fingers trembled as they hovered over the doorknob. The gravelly voice on the other side boomed again, sharper this time. "Ewan, we know she's in there. Open the door now, and we can sort this out." His heart raced, each second stretching like a rubber band, ready to snap. The weight of Alyssa's fear crashed over him like a tidal wave. He swiveled back to her. "What do we do? We can't just let them in." She shook her head, her hair falling across her face like a curtain blocking out reality. "You don't understand. They won't stop. They can't know where I am." Tears glimmered in her eyes, shimmering like broken glass. Ewan forced his breath to slow, trying to think clearly. "If I open the door, they'll see you. They'll take you, and then what? I won't let that happen." Another knock came, heavier this time, filled with the threat of violence. "Last chance, Ewan. Open up." For a split second, fear suffocated him. He thought he heard the metal of the doorknob turning, but it was just his imagination, spiraling off with panic. "We can't hide forever, Alyssa." She grasped the towel, her fingers stained crimson. "There's a reason they want me. Something I found," she murmured, pain leaking into every word. "Things that could destroy everything." Ewan frowned. "What do you mean?" Silence enveloped the room, thick and heavy like fog. She glanced at the door. "If they know I'm here, they'll do anything to take me out. You, too, if you help me." The voice outside cut through the tension. "I'm not messing around, Ewan. I'll count to 3. His instinct screamed at him. They needed to move. "We can't stay here. Can you walk?" She nodded slowly, determination flickering in her expression as she pushed herself up, leaning against the couch for support. "Then let us get to the back. There is a door there. We can slip out." Ewan's pulse quickened. Every noise outside felt like a warning shot. They were running out of time. He grabbed her arm gently, and they cautiously crept toward the hallway. "Ewan! Count!" The voice was urgent, as if he sensed the shift. 1, 2. Ewan looked back at Alyssa, fear flashing in her eyes. He gave her a nod, holding his breath as he guided her through the tight space. They were just a few steps from freedom. 3. In that split second, the door shook violently, and the wood groaned under the pressure. Ewan reached for the back door, pushing it open just as he heard the splintering wood of the front door. They burst outside, cold air hitting their faces like a slap. Rain poured steadily, now a full downpour, soaking them instantly as they dashed across the yard. Ewan's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Where do we go?" he shouted, desperation clawing at him as they reached the street. Shadows danced in the night. Alyssa pointed toward an old garage at the end of the street. "We can hide there. Please?" They sprinted, the sound of their footsteps swallowed by the downpour. Ewan looked back, dreading what he might see. But through the curtain of rain, a figure erupted from the house, a ghost in the night. The man stood under the streetlight, shadow looming ominously. Ewan's heart sank. "Over here," Ewan urged, pushing Alyssa toward the garage, his own fear morphing into rage. Who was this man? And what did he want? They ducked inside the musty garage, barely catching their breath. Ewan glanced at Alyssa, the panic swirling in her gaze. "What do they want from you?" he whispered urgently, knowing every second mattered. She looked at him, fear and uncertainty mingling in her expression. "I shouldn't have come here. It's too late for us, Ewan. They'll never stop until they get what I have." The heavy thud of footsteps echoed in the distance. Ewan's heart dropped. They weren't safe yet. He felt the walls constricting around him, and he realized they had plunged into a darkness far more threatening than he could have imagined. His eyes locked onto Alyssa's, a new understanding brewing. The storm was just beginning, and the real battle lay ahead. As the door of the garage creaked ominously, a chilling voice called out, "I know you're in there. You can't run forever." Ewan's hands clenched into fists. They needed to be ready. But could they really outrun the storm that was closing in? Ewan pressed his back against the damp wall, the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps inching closer. His breath quickened, an electric buzz crackling in his ears, drowning out the relentless drumming of the rain against the garage roof. "We have to find another way out," he urged, his voice barely above a whisper. Alyssa nodded, her eyes wide and glassy, reflecting a mix of fear and determination. The figure outside turned, his silhouette ominously lit by the streetlight. Ewan glimpsed the man's features, a chiseled jaw, an icy stare that sent chills straight to his bones. "You're running out of time," he roared, slamming what sounded like a fist against the door. "This is your last chance." The words vibrated through Ewan like an earthquake. He couldn't let Alyssa stay trapped. "This way," he hissed, pulling her toward a heavy wooden workbench piled high with junk, an old lawnmower, stacks of rusting tools, broken furniture. They ducked behind the clutter, holding their breath as the footsteps thudded closer, echoing ominously in the confined space. "Ewan, what do we do if they find us?" Alyssa's voice quivered with terror, mingling with the sound of rain, a haunting lullaby promising more despair. He couldn't answer her. In this moment, his mind raced with every possible escape. Trapped. They were cornered, and the walls felt like they were closing in, yet every dark corner of the garage held hope. Maybe there was a way out. The crashing sound of the door splitting apart jolted them. Wood splintered and crunched. I know you're in here, Alyssa. You can't hide. The voice rang out, dripping with authority. The panic surged in Ewan's chest. Get ready to run, he whispered, scanning the dim light for anything that could be used as a weapon. A rusted wrench lay just within reach, glinting like a beacon of hope in his desperate mind. He grabbed it tightly, the cool metal comforting against his palm. Just then, the garage door creaked open, revealing the dark outline of the man silhouetted against the stormy sky. He stepped into the fractured light, scanning the room with a predator-esque calm. You think you can just disappear? I will find you, and when I do, you're going to wish you fought harder. Ewan's heart thundered in his chest, raw fear igniting his instincts. They had to act fast. This was no longer just about hiding, it was a game of cat and mouse. We can't wait for him to come for us. We need to make a move. His voice shook with urgency. Alyssa glanced around nervously, weighing options. What if he hears us? Then we need to be quicker. Ewan gestured toward a window at the far end of the garage. It's a tight squeeze, but we can fit. If we get out there, we can make a run for it. She swallowed hard, determination hardening her features. Okay, on the count of 3. Ewan gripped the wrench tightly, feeling the adrenaline surge. 1, 2, but before he reached 3, the figure lunged into the garage, his eyes narrowing as he spotted them. You can't escape. Ewan's instinct snapped into overdrive. He hurled the wrench at the man, hoping to buy them just a few precious seconds. It clattered against the man's shoulder, but it barely slowed him down. Alyssa took off running towards the window, desperate to escape. Go, go! Ewan shouted as he charged after her, heart racing faster than their footsteps. The man's furious roar echoed behind them, a curtain of anger unfurling as they dashed for freedom. They reached the window, but the storm howled outside, winds battering the frame. Ewan grabbed Alyssa's hand, pulling her close. We'll push together, he encouraged, locking eyes with her brief glance. The sound of shattering glass thundered through the air. You're done! The man screamed. With a final heave, they pushed through the opening just as a hand shot forward, missing Ewan by inches. They tumbled out into the rain, landing hard against the damp earth. Gasping for breath, Ewan glanced back at the garage, heart in his throat. I can't believe we made it, Alyssa gasped, but Ewan's relief was short-lived. Echoing footsteps pursued them across the yard. Run! He urged, dragging her along the blurring street. As they broke free of the immediate danger, Ewan felt a sense of growing dread. They had escaped the storm for now, but the real challenge awaited them. But what if the truth Alyssa carried was darker than they could ever imagine? Ewan's heart sank at the idea. And as dawn began to break, they realized the real hunt was just beginning. As they reached the outskirts of a familiar neighborhood, Alyssa stopped dead in her tracks. Ewan, we can't go back to my place. Why not? He asked, panic seeping into his voice. Because they know where I live. A chilling realization swept over him, leaving a cold knot in his stomach. Then where do we go? But with sirens wailing in the distance, a thought crept into Ewan's mind. Would they be able to outrun the shadows creeping ever closer? Alyssa's eyes darted around, scanning the narrow street as if it might hold any semblance of safety. The sirens grew louder, inching closer, blending into the storm's cacophony. Panic gripped Ewan's heart as he grasped her shoulders. We have to think fast. Drinking coffee and watching the rain feels nice, but this isn't the time. Her breaths came in quick gasps, trembling beneath his grip. What if they're already at my house? What if they're watching us right now? A chill settled over him. He had no answers. We can't go there, that's for sure. He glanced around, desperation fueling his thoughts. We need to split up. You go to Marissa's. It's safe there. Alyssa shook her head, her expression a mixture of defiance and fear. I can't just run away. We need to stay together. The shrill whistle of police sirens changed notes, echoing through the rain-soaked night. Ewan knew time was running out. We can't stay out here, either. It makes us easy targets. Just a couple of kids out at dawn when they should be asleep. With the noise closing in, every second stretched like thin ice beneath their feet. What if we head to the park? Alyssa suggested, a spark of hope surfacing in her voice. There are always people around, and we can hide in the trees. Not a chance, he replied, his tone sharper than intended. He paced, thinking, his gaze drifting to the nearby convenience store. We could go there. Lots of cameras. It'll buy us some time at least until the cops show up. Alyssa's lips pressed into a thin line. You're the one calling the shots? What if they know we think of that? Then we'll need to be smart. We'll keep our heads down and blend in. Just two kids waiting out the storm. No big deal. Just as he turned to lead the way, a shout pierced the storm. Alyssa! Ewan! They froze, hearts pounding in unison. The voice splintered the tension like glass breaking. The man from the garage emerged from the shadows, his presence both electric and sinister, step by deliberate step. You think you can run? This isn't a game. Ewan felt the weight of his wrench, but the moment felt impossible. He drew Alyssa closer, his mind racing for options. We have to move. Before they could react, the man lunged toward them. Ewan pushed Alyssa toward the store's dim light, praying it wouldn't spark her fear into a panic. She stumbled but regained her balance. Darting ahead, they burst through the glass door, breathless, and almost collided with a surprised clerk behind the counter. The store's bright lights illuminated their horror, but Ewan didn't care about the exposure. They ducked behind shelves, feeling safety rush around them. What now? Alyssa whispered, glancing between the rows of snacks and drinks, voice trembling. What if? We stay low and keep quiet, he said, trying to calm his own racing heart. Just a couple of kids hiding from a storm, remember? Outside, the man stepped into the store, and Ewan's stomach dropped. He scanned the aisles, eyes searching. Ewan could feel the tension boiling like a pot about to overflow. Alyssa's fingers squeezed his arm. What if he sees us? Then we make our stand. The wrench felt heavy, not just because of its weight but because of the terror it was supposed to protect them from. But what they didn't see coming was when the man turned suddenly, his attention shifting to the clerk. Where are the kids? I'm looking for them. The clerk's eyes widened in shock. I don't know what you're talking about. The man laughed, low and dripping with menace. Oh, but I think you do. Ewan's heart raced as the walls seemed to close in. They were trapped, each heartbeat echoing their hurried thoughts. This was no ordinary game of hide-and-seek anymore. He had never felt so exposed, every instinct screaming at him to run. But where would they run to next? Then the realization hit him with sickening clarity. Sometimes, the past catches up in unexpected ways. And soon, Alyssa's secret would resurface like a storm on the horizon. As they crouched in silence, the man's gaze shifted, striking like a thunderclap. Ewan knew they had seconds left and that the truth could be more terrifying than the danger chasing them. What lay ahead could change everything. Ewan felt a surge of adrenaline as he glimpsed the man's face, twisted in fury. His heart thundered in his chest, a drumbeat matching the storm outside. The clerk was visibly sweating, panic twisting his features like a sculpture gone wrong. Ewan leaned closer to Alyssa, whispering urgently, we need a distraction, something to draw him away. Alyssa's eyes darted around, scanning their confined space. She spotted a battered old radio behind the counter, stacked between cereal boxes. What if we? Her voice faded as if even suggesting it was too dangerous. Exactly. Ewan whispered back. He pointed toward the radio. If we get it on, maybe he'll turn. One of us could sneak out while he's distracted. You want to try? Alyssa looked hesitant, but she nodded. Resolute, she tightened her grip on the back of the shelf. Ewan caught a glimpse of her fear again but pushed it down. They had to act. They had to survive. As the man turned back toward the clerk, frustration etched on his face, Ewan seized the moment. Go! He hissed, and Alyssa slipped away, careful not to make a sound. He kept his eyes on the man, who was now looming over the clerk, fingers tapping impatiently on the counter. Ewan's stomach twisted as dread washed over him. What if Alyssa couldn't reach the radio? What if the man noticed her? Come on, come on. He muttered under his breath, the words almost lost in the noise of the rain. Alyssa was moving behind the counter, her hands fumbling over the dusty knobs of the old radio. In that split second, the man's voice boomed. You better give me answers, or we might both find ourselves with a whole lot of trouble. Ewan clenched his wrench tighter. He couldn't let the man intimidate them. Alyssa needed her moment. The clerk stammered, desperately backpedaling, I told you, I haven't seen them. Then, with a crackle and a burst of static, the radio suddenly fired to life, drowning out the tension in the air. A garbled tune filled the space, the sound of a classic rock anthem echoing against the convenience store's walls. Relief washed over Ewan for a moment, broken by the man's fury at the interruption. What the hell is that? Alyssa took the chance, darting back to Ewan's side, her eyes wide. It worked. Now what? Now we move, he whispered urgently, scanning for exits. The front of the store was still their best option. It seemed they were creating just enough chaos. Without thinking, Ewan pulled Alyssa close, whispering, on 3. 1, 2, freeze. The man's voice was lethal, the sound crackling through the air like a whip. Ewan's stomach dropped. The man was now blocking the doorway. You're not going anywhere, he warned, dark eyes narrowing as he surveyed the store again. The intensity thickened. Ewan's mind raced, calculating options. They could fight, but Alyssa's safety was paramount. Then, a scream cut through the air, a witness outside, frightened by the scene playing out like a bad movie. Someone's in trouble. The man turned towards the door for just a moment. That was all Ewan needed. He launched himself at the man, dropping the wrench briefly as adrenaline surged through him, fueled by desperation. He shoved the man back, ready to sprint for freedom. Alyssa screamed, Ewan, get out! But while they could run, they couldn't escape the storm that loomed outside, and Ewan knew that whatever secrets they were trying to evade were still very much alive, waiting just beyond the door. As they burst into the night, rain pounding down like fists, he turned to Alyssa, breathless. Where do we go now? But even as the thunder rumbled behind them, a shadow loomed across the street, lurking just out of sight. Ewan! Alyssa gasped, pointing ahead. With the chaos behind them, could they ever truly be safe? The storm was just the beginning. What awaited them in the darkness? Ewan's heart raced as he squinted through the sheets of rain. The shadow loomed larger, inching closer under the sporadic glow of a flickering street lamp. It was then that he saw her, a woman standing just out of reach, eyes wide with fear. She looked as if she'd stumbled straight out of a nightmare. Do you see her? Ewan asked, his voice barely above a whisper, the storm drowning out their surroundings. Yeah, Alyssa replied, shifting closer to him, the warmth of her breath mixing with the cold night air. But we shouldn't approach. What if she's with that man? The woman's ragged clothing clung to her as she turned, backing against the wall. Ewan's instinct screamed at him to run, but something in her terrified expression held him there. She was hurt, vulnerable, and all alone in the chaos. Help! She screamed suddenly, her voice piercing through the rain. The sound echoed in the hollow night, a melody of desperation. Please! They're coming! Alyssa grabbed Ewan's arm, eyes darting around them as if expecting shadows to spring to life. It was unsafe, he knew that. But the woman's voice had planted a seed of unease in his gut. They couldn't just leave her? Hell, they can't be far behind, Ewan muttered, sizing up their options. We have to. But before he could finish, a figure emerged from the darkness, a man framed in the glow of headlights from a distant car. He looked like the one from the store, the storm having twisted his anger into something entirely primal. It was him, the man who had demanded answers. Rage crackled in the air around them. Get away from her! He shouted, his voice a low growl, venomous and sharp. The woman flinched, pressed further against the wall, eyes darting to the street where freedom lay. Yuan felt the tension coil inside of him like a spring, ready to snap. "Alyssa, we've got to act," he hissed. Their chance was fleeting, and he couldn't afford to hesitate. "Run!" the woman cried, her voice cracking under the weight of fear. "He'll kill you. What do you want?" Yuan shot back, heart pounding in his ears as he stepped forward protectively, feeling brave and terrified all at once. It was a challenge, raw and reckless. "I want what's mine," the man spat, dark eyes glinting like storm clouds. "Step aside!" Everything in Yuan screamed at him to back away, to escape into the shelter of the rain-soaked streets, but he didn't. Not with the woman trapped in this nightmare. Yuan stole a quick glance at Alyssa. She was frozen, a mixture of terror and resolve. "We can't let him hurt her," he said, more to convince himself than anything. The man laughed, a low, throaty sound that sliced through the air. "You think you can protect her? You don't even know what you're facing." Before Yuan could respond, the woman whispered urgently, "He's part of something dark. You don't want to tangle with him." Her voice trembled, but her gaze was fierce. "They'll find me if you don't help me." Yuan's heart pounded even harder. What had they stumbled into? Shadows twisted around them, and with every heartbeat, the storm felt less a backdrop and more a character in the unfolding dread. "Run!" Alyssa urged again, tightening her grip on Yuan's arm as if he would bolt. "We can't save her. We have to go, now." But something held him in place, a fight between instinct and empathy. Yuan looked at the woman, who stood trembling but defiant. Determination ignited within him, an inexplicable urge to stand his ground. "Let us get her out of here," he said firmly, but before he could react, the man lunged forward, a predator with blood in his eyes. Yuan braced himself, but then stopped. A new voice erupted from the shadows, slicing through the night like a blade. Chaos erupted as two more figures emerged, their faces obscured but their intentions clear in the yard behind them. It was clear this was far from over. The nightmare was just beginning, and Yuan faltered for a moment, reality crashing like the storm around them. Who were these new players? What game were they all a part of? The storm rumbled more violently, as rain fell harder, drowning out their hopes for safety as it mixed with the sound of approaching chaos. Would Yuan and Alyssa be caught in this web, or was escape still a flicker on the horizon? As they braced for the next move, the darkness seemed to close in around them, a chilling reminder that what lay ahead was a tempest unlike anything they had ever faced. Yuan's breath hitched as the landscape shifted into even darker shapes. Two figures stepped into the light, their movements sharp and predatory. Yuan's mind raced as he scanned their silhouettes, trying to discern friend from foe, the storm swirling more fiercely around them. "Get back!" One of the newcomers barked, a woman with wild hair that whipped around her like a dark halo. She lifted a hand, and Yuan noticed the gleam of a knife reflecting the weak light. The storm disguised every twist and tremor in the atmosphere, but tension was palpable. Yuan's throat felt tight, barely allowing him to speak. "Who are you?" "We're here to help her," the man beside her said, stepping forward into their dwindling circle of safety. His voice was deep and steady, a stark contrast to the chaos. "But you need to trust us, and fast." "Trust you?" Alyssa spat, her voice dripping with disbelief. "How do we know you're not part of this? How do we know he's not coming for you too?" The man shot a look back at the original predator, who stood firm, fists clenched and body trembling with rage. "He's not waiting anymore. We have to move. They're closer than you think." Yuan's heart raced anew. The shadows now felt thicker, as if they had a life of their own. Were they really outnumbered? He took a step back, instinct screaming at him to make a break for it, but when he glanced at the terrified woman pressed against the wall, he couldn't leave her behind. "Why is he after you?" Yuan asked. The question slipped out, heavy in the tension-laden air. "Because I know," she cried, desperation spilling into her words. "I've seen what he and his people do. I escaped. Please, you have to help me." "Help you?" Alyssa echoed, her voice softening, but still uncertain. What does he want from you? The man with the knife nodded, urgency dripping from his words. She holds key information about a deal gone wrong. These guys don't mess around. If they find her, they won't just kill her, they'll come after anyone who helps her. Yuan's heart raced. This was bigger than he had originally thought. Dark and tangled like the storm swirling above them, the situation was now set. The man in front of him seemed genuine, a protector in every sense. But could he really trust him? Suddenly, the original predator lunged forward again, his wild eyes locked onto the woman. Enough talking. It's time to take what's mine. The world around them erupted, the rain turned from a dull whisper to a deafening roar. Yuan barely had time to react before Alyssa pulled him further back into the shadows. Go! She urged, her voice urgent. Now! But where? Yuan's mind swirled with potential escapes, none feeling safe. With the storm pounding down like a war drum, and conflicting voices fraying his already taut nerves, Yuan was frozen. Take her! The man yelled, gesturing to the woman whose eyes were wild with panic. We'll hold him off. The woman's feet shuffled nervously. She was prepared to run, but skepticism hung in the air like morning fog. Was she willing to trust again? Before Yuan could decipher the madness around him, the man and woman charged toward the figure. Steel met flesh with sickening thuds. Yuan's heart raced as adrenaline shot through him. He had to make a choice, and fast, stay amidst the chaos or follow the woman into the unknown. Yuan! Alyssa's voice pulled him back. What are we doing? He could feel the weight of the world settling on his shoulders. A choice was coming, and it was his to make. Would he let fear decide, or would he unleash courage he didn't know he possessed? He stood on the precipice of action, terror and adrenaline battling in his chest. Just then, a flash of lightning illuminated the chaotic scene, revealing all the players in a stark tableau of desperation and greed. Would the storm swallow them whole? Or was salvation just a heartbeat away? Yuan clenched his fists, the decision teetering like a storm cloud overhead, ready to burst. The moment demanded action before it was too late. Where would his choice lead him? What shadows lurked to the side? And then it hit him no more. Hesitation. The time for bravery was now or never. Yuan took a breath that felt like fire in his lungs. Adrenaline surged, and with muscle memory forged from fear, he moved. Come on! He shouted, grabbing the woman's wrist and pulling her toward the shadowy edge of the alley behind them. Chaos erupted. The man and woman were engaging the predator, knives flashing like angry serpents under the angry sky. Yuan dared a glance back, heart in his throat as the predator roared, battling against the resistance. Each blow echoed against the brick wall, a violent symphony of survival. The woman tugged at Yuan's arm, pulling him back to her. Wait! We can't just leave them. Her voice trembled, caught in the storm's roar and the clash of desperation. Yuan shook his head, urgency flooding him. They can handle it. We need to get you to safety. He felt a strange sense of protectiveness toward her, a tether pulling him into the maelstrom of danger. The storm pressed in around them, colder, harsher. Yuan dragged the woman toward the narrow street that led away from the chaos, rain lashing at their faces like tiny daggers, masking the uncertainty that fogged his mind. With every step, he felt the weight of his decision. Was he abandoning them to their fate? He cast another glance back just as the man staggered, a glimmer of crimson catching Yuan's eye. His resolve shook like leaves in the wind. No. We can't just leave them. He shouted again, halting in the rain-soaked alley. Yuan! Trust them! Alyssa pleaded, fear etched in her features. They know what they're doing. Yuan's mind raced. Who were they really? Friends or foes? He felt the pressure mounting, the darkness clawing at his sanity. The storm seemed to conspire against him, wrapping its icy tendrils around his heart. It roared again, and Yuan was thrown into a moment of indecision. Please? We have to go now. The woman cried again, her voice cutting through the noise. Yuan's instincts kicked in, igniting a spark of courage amid the chaos churning in his gut. With fierce determination, he turned sharply, the grip on the woman's arm tightening. They barreled down the alley, the ominous shadows giving chase. Rain puddles splashed around them, and Yuan's breath came in quick bursts. Where was he taking her? The reality hit him hard. The further they ran, the more questions piled up, shadows looming just beyond the edge of his vision. A scream erupted behind them, a sound that pierced through the storm. It gripped Yuan's heart like a vice. He faltered, fingers flexing around the woman's wrist. "Oh God, we can't just leave them," he gasped, fighting against the instinct to flee. "They'll be fine. They have to be," she cried back, urgency tinging her voice, but Yuan could hear the underlying panic in her tone. It felt like they were caught in an endless loop, suspended in fear, just like the storm above, thrashing and unrelenting. Suddenly, the alley opened up into a desolate street, heavy traffic lights flickering through the haze of rain. Yuan hesitated, glancing over his shoulder. Shadows danced ominously, and he could almost taste the dread in the air. "Where to now?" He whispered, more to himself than to her, uncertainty coiling around him like a shroud. "We need to find a place to hide," the woman urged, her eyes wide with fear that mirrored his own. "Somewhere safe." Before an ear-splitting crash interrupted the sentence, echoing down the alley. Yuan's body went cold. They had crossed a line, and whatever monsters lay behind them were not going to just let them go. "Yuan! We're out of time!" Alyssa yelled, drawing his attention back to her. Buckets of rain poured down, but he could no longer hear it. All he could think was the lurking threat, the possibilities stretching out like a dark abyss. Would they see the light again? "Come on! This way!" Yuan shouted, taking off down the street. Yet, dread gnawed at him with each heartbeat that echoed in his ears. Would they make it? And what awaited them in the unknown ahead? And as they turned down a side street, a shadow flickered behind them, a whisper of danger barely discernible in the storm. The predator wasn't done yet. "We're not safe yet," Yuan whispered, goosebumps racing down his arms. What horrors waited around the corner? Would their short respite be the calm before a bigger storm? Yuan's breath quickened as they dashed through the darkness. The rain hammered down, a relentless barrage that blurred his vision and drummed a pulse of panic into his veins. They skidded around a corner, deeper into the gloom as Alyssa kept pace beside him, her fear palpable like a static charge in the air. Both of them were drenched, hearts racing like the storm crashing above. "Hurry!" he urged, anxiety wrapping around every word. Yuan glanced over his shoulder as they turned another corner, catching a glimpse of shadows moving close behind them. The hunter was still in pursuit. It felt as if the storm had awakened monsters of the night, and they were right on their heels. Alyssa's grip felt stronger on his arm. "We can't keep running like this," she gasped, each breath trembling with terror and exhaustion. "I don't even know where we're going. We just need to get to that building." Yuan pointed to a figure looming ahead, a large, abandoned warehouse, its dark windows seeming to stare back at them like hollow eyes watching their every move. The thought of hiding gave him a spark of hope. Perhaps the darkness within would swallow them whole, keep them safe, just for a little while longer. They burst through the doors, splintered wood creaking under their weight as they stumbled in and fell into a darkened expanse. Yuan squinted, trying to see more than mere shapes carved from shadows, holding the cool metal of the wrench tightly in his hand like a lifeline. "Anyone here?" he called, his voice echoing unnervingly in the vast emptiness. Silence wrapped around them, suffocating and thick. Do you think we lost him?" Alyssa whispered, her voice strained, eyes wide and darting around, searching for any signs of danger. Yuan shook his head. "I don't know. But we can't let up. We have to be ready." He could feel the anxiety clawing at his chest, threatening to choke him with every heartbeat. They tiptoed deeper into the warehouse, shadows shifting as they moved, the smell of damp wood mingling with the musty scent of age. Suddenly, in the distance, a voice filled the silence, a low growl that sent chills crawling up Yuan's spine. "I know you're in here. It's only a matter of time." Panic flooded his system with a cold jolt. "We need to find somewhere to hide," he hissed, and they rushed toward a row of old crates piled in the corner. "Over there," Alyssa pointed, urgency cutting through her fear. They squeezed behind the crates, heartbeats loud in their ears as they scooted into shadows that seemed to envelop them completely, swallowing their presence in the darkness. The dark figure loomed closer, steps echoing throughout the warehouse. "You think you can run forever?" The man taunted, voice dripping with malice. In that moment, Ewan could almost feel the walls closing in, pressing tight against their trembling bodies. The sound of shuffling steps stopped mere feet from their hiding spot, and Ewan held his breath, willing the air to stay still. Thumping heartbeats felt like thunderclaps in his chest. "I know you're here," the man growled, his voice slicing through the darkness, reverberating in the cold air. "You can't hide forever." Ewan glanced at Alyssa, who was waiting wide-eyed beside him. The panic washed over both of them, pooling at their feet like water around a sinking ship. "Stay quiet," he breathed, but panic was thick in the air. If they were discovered now, nothing in his mind could justify what would happen next. Then, from outside, the ding of an approaching siren cut through the night, a haunting melody of hope. Ewan felt a rush of determination. He built up the courage, glancing at Alyssa. "If we time this right, maybe we can get out." Her eyes widened, understanding flickering like a light in the dark. With a sudden flash, Ewan scrambled from behind the crates, adrenaline pumping through him, leading the way. "Now!" he shouted, and they darted across the warehouse floor, feet pounding against the concrete. "Damn it!" the man barked as they raced toward a side door just as two uniformed officers strode in from the shadows, their guns drawn, lights flashing in the darkness. "Get down!" Ewan barked, instinctively shielding Alyssa as they reached the officers. "Freeze!" one shouted, as shouts and commands merged into chaos. The man from the shadows charged toward them, fury burning in his eyes. "You can't take her!" Ewan's heart raced as he braced for the impact, knowing the moment teetered on a knife's edge. But before the man could reach them, two shots rang out, echoing like thunder within the walls of the warehouse. The man staggered, eyes wide, and fell backward, crashing into the crates behind him. Time slowed as Ewan gasped, disbelief mixing with relief. The men and women who had come in with the storm transformed into heroes in that few-second nightmare. "It's over!" one officer shouted as Ewan turned, tearing his gaze from the fallen figure. They were finally safe. In shock, he turned to Alyssa. Hope filled her eyes, though they swept the room cautiously, still filtering the chaos. "Is it really over?" she murmured, the raw edge of disbelief lacing her voice. "Yes, I think so," he managed, but the shaky knot in his stomach told him it still felt fragile, like glass. The storm had cleared enough for a new dawn. As officers took control, Ewan took Alyssa's hand, squeezing it tight. "We did it! We made it!" With every gunshot that had echoed through the night, every storm that had battered against the world, they had survived it. The truth would continue to swirl in the air, what she carried, and what was still left unresolved, but they had escaped the darkness that chased them. Ewan, Alyssa's voice trembled, their eyes locking, truth and secrets balancing delicately between them. He tilted his head, ready for whatever came next. The storm had passed, but the journey whispered of things still yet to come. Together, they took a step into the dawn, ready to face whatever awaited them beyond the horizon. If this storm hadn't broken them, nothing could. They had each other, and sometimes, that's all you need to weather the storm. Hey! Before you go, make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the gripping stories we have coming your way. This is the moment to show your support. Just smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.